Well, hello there and welcome to World News Program coming to you live on All 24 News. I'm Karim Zachary and we've got the top stories lined up for you just up next. 69 Palestinians were killed in 5 new Zionist massacres in Gaza in just 24 hours. The toll rises as dozens are dead and others injured due to intense bombing since early Saturday. Safe zones in Gaza have shrunk to just 35 square kilometers, and Kamal Adwan Hospital is shut down. About 100,000 people are displaced, with 20 shelters out of service, while UNICEF says things are a nightmare and World Health Organization is sounding the alarm over new polio cases. Also coming up, a Hamas delegation has landed in Cairo to hammer out a ceasefire deal. Meanwhile, the International Criminal Court's prosecutor is calling for the quick arrest of Netanyahu and Gallant. And the Tokyo International Conference on African Development has put Moroccan bullying in the spotlight. The Sahrawi foreign minister is accusing Morocco of thuggery to keep the Sahrawi delegation out of Tikal, underscoring the political and diplomatic isolation of Moroccan occupation. Stay tuned for the full scoop right after the break. Hello again and welcome to the details. First up, occupation forces have carried out 5 new massacres in Gaza, killing 69 and injuring 212 in just 24 hours. The Palestinian Ministry of Health reports that the death toll from the ongoing Zionist aggression has climbed up to 40,334, with 93,356 injured since October 7th. This doesn't include, however, those still trapped in the rebel or in the streets. And since Saturday morning, over 60 Palestinians have been killed and dozens more injured in heavy Zionist bombing across Gaza. Medical sources reported numerous casualties at Nasser Medical Complex in Khan Yunis, with artillery airstrikes and drone fire hitting displaced people's tents. Witnesses said civil defense teams recovered bodies after occupation forces partially pulled back, leaving a trail of devastation. On Saturday, 4 Palestinians were killed and several others injured in a Zionist airstrike on a house in southeast Khan Yunis in Gaza. According to the Palestinian news agency, occupation warplanes hit a home in the Imam area, leading to these casualties. The Palestinian Civil Defense in Gaza reported on Saturday that Zionist operations have slashed safe areas in the Gaza Strip from 230 to just 35 square kilometers. This drastic reduction, which happened this month, now leaves only 9.5% of Gaza's total area as humanitarian zones, including 3.5% of agricultural, service, and commercial spaces. Since the beginning of the Zionist ground invasion, hundreds of thousands of Palestinian civilians have been forced to flee. Meanwhile, the World Health Organization has voiced serious concern over a confirmed case of polio in an infant in Deir al-Bala, Gaza, marking the first case in 25 years. World Health Organization Director General Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus reported that the child has lost movement in the lower part of his left leg, but his condition remains stable. The World Health Organization plans to roll out 2 rounds of polio vaccinations in Gaza from late August through September.
I'm extremely concerned about the confirmation of polio in non-vaccinated 10-month-old child from Deir al-Balah in Gaza. This is the first case of polio in Gaza in 25 years. The child has been paralyzed in the lower left leg. Given high risk of poliovirus spread in Gaza and the region, the Palestinian Ministry of Health, the World Health Organization, and UNICEF are working to carry out 2 rounds of polio vaccination in the coming weeks to halt the transmission of the virus.
Humanitarian organizations had already predicted the return of polio in Gaza, with a ceasefire still out of reach. UN agencies are set to kick off a major vaccination campaign by the end of August. Yassine Eric T has more on this developing story.
This has become an all-too familiar sight over the past year. Waste and sewage are now part of Gaza's everyday scenery. Dirty water floods the streets, drawing mosquitoes and flies, a breeding ground for microbes, just waiting to cause diseases and skin rashes. The disastrous health situation in the Strip is a perfect storm for viruses to thrive. Just a few days ago, the first case of polio, a highly contagious and potentially deadly disease, was detected. The World Health Organization and the United Nations are raising the alarm, warning of a possible epidemic.
The Ministry of Health, in collaboration with UNICEF, UNRWA and WHO, took 7 wastewater samples from various parts of the central and southern governorates. 6 out of the 7 samples tested positive for the polio virus, which causes paralysis in children. As a result, the Gaza Strip has been declared a polio-infested area, with many infected people in the Strip.
In response, UN humanitarian agencies have announced a vaccination campaign against polio set to kick off by the end of the month. It's an ambitious plan, but one fraught with challenges under skies filled with airstrikes. Despite the lack of a ceasefire and the pressing urgency of the situation, UNRWA has decided to push forward with 2 rounds of vaccinations to stop the virus in its tracks. The goal is to ensure that every child under 10 receives the polio vaccine.
This disease is extremely dangerous, and if the occupation forces continue to block the passage of vaccines, it will lead to a health catastrophe and could result in the deaths or even extermination of hundreds of thousands of citizens in Gaza. We urgently need to vaccinate all children under 10, which requires 1.3 million doses, as there are 650,000 children in this age group who need protection against type 2 poliovirus.
But in the midst of a genocide, it only takes one case to threaten an entire generation of children. Helpless parents are at their wits' end, unsure where to turn for help.
I'm terrified that the situation will get worse and that more cases of polio will spread among our children. We need the polio vaccine as soon as possible to stop this from happening. My son didn't get his first vaccine in his first month, so I had to take him to the hospital because he hasn't received enough treatment to improve his health.
After more than 10 months of relentless attacks, the Zionist entity has turned Gaza into an open-air slaughterhouse. By blocking aid and medicine, the occupation seems bent on a new objective, slowly killing off the Palestinian people.
The ongoing Zionist war on Gaza has rendered most hospitals non-operational. The few that remain open can only offer limited services due to severe shortages, as humanitarian aid is being deliberately blocked by the Israeli occupation. Zara Farjani has the latest.
Darkness now prevails over the corridors of Kamal Adwan Hospital in northern Gaza. With power and fuel shortages leaving most hospitals out of service, the situation is dire. The occupation's actions seem aimed at erasing the essentials of life in Gaza. In the dimly lit halls of Kamal Adwan Hospital, only the faint glow from mobile phones and devices running on their last bits of batteries pierces the darkness. Medical equipment has ceased functioning altogether.
The medical equipment is out of service and is not receiving electricity, and the nursery contains premature babies and young children, which indicates an ongoing catastrophe.
Even the innocence of infants in Gaza has not escaped the brutality of the occupation. Medical teams are making desperate efforts to extend a few more hours of life for their patients before all hope fades, as the occupation has cut off all essential supplies.
The incubator babies are at risk of cardiac arrest and death, and there are also 7 cases in the intensive care unit who will die due to the fuel shortage.
Kamal Adwan Hospital stands as the last refuge for emergency care, though its resources are severely strained.
We are asking international institutions and teams to supply Kamal Adwan Hospital with fuel, as its life is at risk, and it will completely cease to function.
For patients, the journey through suffering continues, now exacerbated by the hospital's inability to operate.
Suddenly, I had kidney colic and I had trouble getting to the hospital. When I arrived at the hospital, there was no electricity and I don't know how the treatment will be provided under these circumstances.
As Gaza's hospitals face the threat of complete shutdown due to the ongoing aggression, the continued Zionist siege leaves the people of Gaza struggling for even the most basic services.
Meanwhile, the Deir el-Bala municipality reported that 100,000 residents have fled the eastern parts of the city over the past 2 days, and 20 shelters are now out of service. This surge in displaced individuals comes after Zionist evacuation orders and the reduction of safe areas. The city center and western areas of Deir el-Bala are now housing hundreds of thousands of displaced Palestinians. UNICEF spokesperson Ricardo Perez has called the situation for children in Gaza dire and worsening, citing severe psychological trauma from the ongoing conflict. He reported that 2 million people have been displaced, with half of them being children, and highlighted a critical shortage of humanitarian aid amid increasing needs.
About 2 million people have been displaced from the Gaza Strip since the beginning of the war. Half of them children. It is a horrendous situation. Children there are deprived from social life and show negative effects as a result of living with trauma, and some of them have even stopped speaking.
In another disturbing figure, the Zionist aggression on Gaza has left over 19,000 orphans or unaccompanied children, as UNICEF describes them, due to the death or displacement of one or both parents. UNICEF spokesperson Qasim Abu Khalaf reported that with 1.9 million displaced people in Gaza, this figure includes children who are either orphaned or separated from their parents by the conflict. Hamas announced that its delegation, led by senior leader Khalil al-Hayya, has arrived in Cairo in response to invitations from mediators in Egypt and Qatar. In a Telegram statement, Hamas said the delegation is in Cairo to review the results of recent negotiations. The movement also reaffirmed its commitment to the agreements made on July 2nd, which are based on U.S. President Joe Biden's statement and the UN Security Council resolution.
We confirm that the movement's delegation has arrived in Cairo today. Delegation will listen to the mediators regarding the developments of negotiations that took place with the occupation over the past days, and will base its decision on what will be heard from the mediators. The movement is committed to July 2nd agreement and is ready to implement it, adhering to the Security Council resolution and the principles announced by Biden in this regard. We are confident that there is no need for new negotiations, discussions or documents. We need to implement what has already been agreed upon, and we are ready to do so.
International Criminal Court prosecutor Karim Khan has called for an urgent decision on his request for arrest warrants for Benjamin Netanyahu and Defense Minister Yoav Gallant. This request comes as part of his response on Saturday to statements from 64 individuals, countries and institutions before the court's preliminary examination chamber regarding the warrants.
Israel has not initiated any investigation into the crimes involving Netanyahu and Gallant. The court has the authority and responsibility to take the necessary actions. There is no internal investigation within the Israeli local courts that is effective and honest enough to prevent the International Criminal Court from investigating Israeli officials. And there is no reason to wait for the court. The open investigation against Netanyahu and Gallant meets the admissibility criteria. We demand that the request for the arrest against Netanyahu and Gallant be decided upon urgently.
To public opinion now, major cities and capitals around the world saw massive protests condemning the ongoing Zionist massacres on Palestinians in Gaza and the West Bank. Thousands took to the streets in Aarhus and Copenhagen in Denmark, Blackburn in the UK, Bremerhaven in Germany, and Uppsala in Sweden, voicing support for Palestinians and calling for a ceasefire and humanitarian aid for Gaza.
The number one thing I would say is it's time to end this genocide now. It was actually time to end this genocide before it began. But the fact is that 40,000 people are dead, at least. 100,000 at least are injured. Over 2 million are displaced in Gaza. 16,000 of them at least are children.
Two other major developments in the Middle East. Hezbollah announced on Saturday that it targeted Zionist positions in occupied Palestine with rockets and drones. In a statement, the group confirmed striking Zionist soldiers at the Hermon site with a drone and bombarding the Monk site and its surveillance equipment with artillery shells, reporting direct hits. U.S. Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, General C.Q. Brown, has started an unannounced visit to the Middle East to explore ways to prevent further escalation. After beginning his trip in Jordan, he plans to visit Egypt to meet with military leaders. Brown's goal is to work with regional counterparts to avoid a broader conflict, emphasizing that a ceasefire in Gaza could help ease the tensions.
The United States has enhanced its military capabilities in the region to send a strong deterrent message aimed at preventing the escalation of the conflict. The military reinforcements also aim to protect our forces in the event of an attack, which is of utmost importance.
All right, stick around for the latest updates on the presidential election campaign in Algeria. First in this file, Algerian President candidate Youssef Aouchiche has called on the so-called silent majority from all sectors to make their voices heard on September 7th and support his plan. Speaking at a rally in Sétif province on Saturday, Aouchiche highlighted that his presidential project promises solution for the country's challenges, including development, a robust defense system, and national security. He also cautioned that missing this election could mean losing a crucial opportunity for the future.
الأغلبية الصامتة يجب أن تدلي بدلوها.
The silent majority must speak out on September 7th and vote for our vision project. For change, for youth, for renaissance, for development, for prosperity, for social progress, and for building a genuine defense system for our national security, because we don't shirk our responsibilities. MAI is destined to all segments: workers, students, the unemployed, housewives, and the educated class. Mobilize before it's too late. Make your voice and your opinion heard before it's too late.
بينوا على صوتكم ورأيكم قبل فوات الأوان.
In the same context, the campaign director for independent candidate Abdelmajid Tebboune announced that Abdelmajid Tebboune as president has already raised employee salaries by 47% and is now pledging to double them to 100% if re-elected. At a local event in Sidi Bel Abbas province, Ibrahim Arad confirmed that Tebboune plans to boost citizens' purchasing power, integrate university graduates, and encourage entrepreneurship. He also promised to create opportunities for training and experience similar to the High Council of Youth.
Our candidate, during his first term, did a lot for all the groups, especially for the youth and employees. He raised their salaries by 47% and plans to reach 100% within the first or second year of his term. He made great achievements in less than 5 years. Imagine what he will be able to achieve in another 5 years, God willing. All the issues, hardships, and marginalization Algerians are facing today will be addressed. He will deal with the outstanding issues. Abdelmajid Tebboune understands the value of youth, as he enshrined in the Constitution the Higher Council of Youth and entrusted it with driving Algeria forward. I know that the youth played a crucial role in terms of mobilization and impact. I know we can rely on them, as well as on women and the associative movement as a whole.
And lastly, in this file, Algerian presidential candidate Abdelali Hassani Sharif urged citizens to turn out in force for the September 7th elections to showcase the strong connection between the people and their political institutions and to counter external political pressure. At a rally in Oran province, Hassani stressed that a successful election would benefit the nation and that a high voter turnout would demonstrate Algerians' unity in choosing their candidate.
The position of our country, its people and all its components does not align with or follow this international approach. Algerians, thank God, are united against these schemes. We will not allow these schemes to take root in our nation and our country. Algeria disrupts this axis of corruption, this axis of normalization, and this axis that wishes to keep the nation in a state of decline and dependence on the old colonial powers, in a state of discord and split among the countries of the same nation. This requires us as Algerians to have a strong state. Our strength lies in ensuring that these elections are truly popular and that the next president is legitimate and enjoys popular legitimacy. The people must go to the polls and vote for their president, so we do not project the image of a weak country where the political power is separated from the people.
To other major developments in the world, the TICAD ministerial meeting kicked off on Saturday in Tokyo, with Sahrawi Foreign Minister Mohammed Saadati and Lamine Abba Ali, the Sahrawi Republic's permanent representative to the African Union, in attendance. Before the meeting began, Saadati engaged in discussions with African counterparts to review the agenda and address aggression from a Moroccan delegation member. Saadati also condemned the Moroccan government's false claims about the exclusion of the Sahrawi Arab Democratic Republic from the event.
There is a unanimous condemnation. There is a disapproval of such rogue and unacceptable act. I believe that it adds to the isolation of the Kingdom of Morocco, which only resorts to violence against the Sahrawi people, against the aspirations of the Sahrawi people. It resorts to various means to try and dissuade and terrorize not only the Sahrawi people, but the members of the international community. Morocco has suffered a huge political and diplomatic blow, and of course it was a total failure for Morocco that the Sahrawi Republic received the sympathy of the majority of those taking part in the event.
In the same context, the General Union of Workers of Sagia al-Hamra and Wad al-Dahab has confirmed that the Moroccan regime's harsh behavior during the TICAD preparatory meeting did not succeed in legitimizing its occupation of Western Sahara in the international arena.
The barbaric and expansionist regime of the Makhzen, and in the face of its persistent failure and incapacity to convince the world of its occupation of certain parts of the Sahrawi Republic's territory, as it has always done, engaging in harassment, aggression and intimidation, thinking that this would grant its legitimacy. The policy of buying consciences and falsifying facts has not worked with the African continent and its peoples, who have made the greatest sacrifices for freedom and independence. Those who claim to be Moroccan diplomats are in reality, as proven by previous events in Japan or elsewhere, merely groups of thugs and intelligence agents who monitor them have no other methods than buying consciences.
The General Union of Workers of Sagia al-Hamra and Wad al-Dahab strongly condemned the actions of what it called Moroccan Makhzen thugs after a violent attack on the Sahrawi ambassador to Ethiopia and the African Union.
We condemn and denounce in the strongest terms the behavior of Moroccan thugs in Japan following the barbaric attack on the ambassador of the Sahrawi Republic in Ethiopia and the African Union. The Union calls on all international organizations and bodies to uphold the agreements and treaties related to international law, humanitarian law and diplomatic norms. The union praises our glorious people who create epic stories and confront the arrogance and cowardly Makhzen regime in all areas and places.
And in another regional development on Friday, Libyan Interior Minister Ahmad al-Tarabulsi announced an agreement to halt the military escalation in the Libyan capital, Tripoli. In a press conference in Tripoli, al-Tarabulsi confirmed that security forces have begun securing government buildings as well as air and land entry points.
Regarding the issue of Tripoli, there will no longer be permanent positions inside the Libyan capital. We have two parallel plans, securing the streets on one hand and securing headquarters and institutions on the other. For the first plan, all security services will withdraw and return to their main headquarters, not individual ones. The deterrence service must also return to its headquarters.
Libyan Interior Minister Ahmad al-Tarabulsi denied any military plans to attack the Central Bank of Libya, dismissing such reports as baseless rumors. In a press conference on Friday, he announced that security forces would secure all government buildings, including the Central Bank, within 24 hours.
Some time ago, serious rumors circulated regarding forces, groups, brigades and militias considering an attack on the Central Bank of Libya. I want to reassure you 100%, and today I speak on behalf of all security services. There is no military force, no intention, and as the Minister of the Interior responsible for the security of the region and state institutions, I have not heard of any military entity that has attempted or planned an attack on the Central Bank of Libya.
And in another African development, Nigeria is intensifying its monkeypox response with no deaths reported so far. The country is rolling out prevention measures, including new airline protocols and a vaccine rollout to tackle the 39 cases recorded this year. More on this story with Islam Said now.
Nigeria seems to be stepping up its fight against monkeypox, following a global alert from the World Health Organization.
We are intensifying surveillance activities that's tracking cases across Nigeria to swiftly detect and respond to any new cases. We are working with the Port Health Services. Along this line, 5 designated international airports and some key seaports, including land and foot crossing borders, have been placed on high alert.
With no deaths reported so far, the country is rolling out an extensive prevention campaign to keep the virus at bay.
Measures we should take is, as I said, is public awareness. So we have to start teaching our people on case detection. The best people to do this are the mothers and fathers and the relations at home. When you notice that the child is having fever, headache, and rashes, this is what you do. So the pamphlets with pictures of these patients placed in public areas is very, very important.
In a bid to stay ahead of the curve, Nigeria is pushing for greater vigilance. They've introduced declaration forms for airlines, particularly those from regions, battling monkeypox for the past 3 months. But that is just the tip of the iceberg. The country is also ramping up its diagnostic and treatment protocols, training healthcare staff, and gearing up to deploy around 10,000 doses of an emergency use vaccine to target high-risk groups.
Declaration forms have been distributed to airlines, especially those coming in from countries where there is an ongoing outbreak of mpox in the last 90 days. Treatment protocols and diagnostic tool protocols, according to the IDSR, are now distributed to various states.
Now we need to take it to the local governments, the CDAs, and the communities that are actually prone to monkeypox. As it is now, every community is prone to it because as long as you allow contact between animals, it's not just monkey, rodents, squirrels, rats, they can actually be a host to this virus. So we avoid them.
So far this year, Nigeria has logged 39 cases of monkeypox. Health officials are keeping their options open, including the potential use of vaccines to curb the outbreak.
Well, it's time to catch up on more news stories making headlines around the world in this report.
The Russian Defense Ministry reported on Saturday the destruction of 44 Ukrainian drones, the interception of 5 French-made bombs, 12 American HIMARS missiles, and 3 ATACMS. Russian forces targeted a UAV production workshop, an air defense system fuel depot, and 2 electronic warfare stations in Ukraine, resulting in approximately 2,120 Ukrainian military casualties. In response, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky vowed retaliation and launched an offensive against the Russian border region of Kursk.
The new Popular Front coalition, representing the French left, reiterated its demand for respect for legislative election results, informing the new French government. Lucie Castier, the coalition's candidate for prime minister, expressed confidence in her solution for national stability during President Emmanuel Macron's consultations. She welcomed Macron's acknowledgement of the need to honor election outcomes to resolve the country's current paralysis.
A bomb explosion in Pishin, southwestern Pakistan on Saturday killed 2 children and injured 16 others. The blast caused by a remote-controlled bomb on motorcycle targeted the police headquarters and injured 7 policemen. Prime Minister Shahbaz Sharif expressed deep sadness over the casualties.
Mali declared a state of emergency on Friday due to severe flooding caused by heavy rains since June, which has killed 30 people. The floods have displaced or affected about 47,337 individuals and impacted 7,077 families nationwide. In Bamako, 563 families and 4,639 people have been affected, with 6 deaths reported. The city of Gao in the north is also heavily impacted. The government has allocated $7 million for food and aid to the affected families.
And with this, ladies and gentlemen, we wrap up our news program for tonight. For more updates, you can always check our social media platforms. From me and the rest of the team, thank you for tuning in. And until next time, have a good one.